Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today at ADHD Time on Air. I'm joined by Nikki and Pete. They're both co-authors of a book behind me. I'm doing my best not to hold the books as you asked because making noises with them drives you crazy. So I'm trying. They wrote this book. It's called Unapologetic ADHD. And they're also hosts of a great podcast. I mean, I don't want you to leave my podcast, but if you have to leave, go to theirs. It's called Taking Control of AD. And I had the honor of being a guest a few times, which I will put the links to later. So you can hear them torture me with questions about memory. And now it's payback time. I'm gonna talk with them about planning and workflow and organizing in an ADHD friendly way that works for us instead of against us. And I'm going to hear about their experience with writing a book. And I hope you guys all enjoy this. If you don't, then just bye. And if you do, please share, subscribe, and let us know your thoughts. Nikki Pitt, I'm going to say your name wrong all day today. I'm sorry. Whew. I'm excited for you guys to be here. So I'm doing the babbly ADHD thing. So I'm going to stop and I'm going to let you tell us what made you write this amazing book.
Well, Nikki, you need to start. You're the coach here.
All right. Well, we were fortunate because we were actually asked to write a book about ADHD. We had received an email from the publishing company, and I didn't know if it was a real company or not. So I had my assistant at the time research this, is this a real thing? Should I actually meet with this person, or are they asking me for a bunch of money up front and then they're going to sell a book for us, right? Or whatever. It wasn't. It was actually a real publishing company. And we were fortunate because the gal that reached out listened to our show, was a listener of the podcast, and was interested, wanting to know if we would be interested in writing a book about ADHD. And so I got off the phone and I immediately called Pete. And I was like, what do you think? Is this something that you would want to do? It's not something I want to do by myself. I would only really want to do it if Pete wanted to do it with me. And after a lot of discussion and kind of figuring out what would we talk about and how can we do something in book form that we've been doing on the podcast for so many years. And that's where it kind of started. Pete, you have anything to add there?
I I think we were both a little shocked because it did come out of nowhere. The experience of the invitation to write the book, it was really gratifying that, all these years of doing the podcast was, kind of led to this opportunity. And I think it didn't actually take us very long to determine how we were going to do the book together and make it sound like two distinct voices, right? That sort of carries the conceit of the show, where Nikki is the ADHD coach and I'm the guy living with ADHD, just, trying to figure stuff out. And so we approached the book that way. So, the process, I think, led to a book that has dual personalities with intention. And
Yes.
hopefully that's something that people are able to connect to.
Yeah.
It was also important. I was just going to say, as far as the topic, it was important for both of us to bring a book out that wasn't written before either. So not only that it was written with our voices, but also something that was more very specific to something, because I didn't want to write a book that was just everything about ADHD or here are, 50 tips and go do something with them. It's I really wanted to have something that was a little different. And we talk a lot about time management and productivity and planning, but there isn't really a book about a planning method or a way to actually do it. There's a lot of tips and strategies and things like that. So I have a membership. It's called GPS. It stands for Guided Planning Sessions, and it is all around planning and this method that I teach, the system that I teach. And so the book wouldn't exist if I didn't do that membership, because it allowed me to really think about what I teach in that membership and how to put that almost in like a textbook. And Pete and I have talked about planning and time management and all of these things for so many years. And he's had so many great, the whole workbox came from Pete, because he's already been working through these ideas. And so it was just a really nice collaboration of what we've done in the show, what I've done in this membership, what we do together, and then being able to kind of put this in a book. form.
So if someone hasn't bought the book and hopefully will run to the bookstore after this, tell us in like 2 sentences, how would you describe who is the book written for and what it's about?
Well, it is written for ADHDers who want to live their life unapologetically. And that title means something because I think that, working with so many folks in the last, several years, ADHDers are always apologizing. They're always apologizing for being late or not making a deadline or being, working at the very last minute of something or overbooking themselves, taking on too much. It's like they're always apologizing and they're always taking the blame. And I think that a lot of times people are planning like they don't have ADHD when they do have ADHD. So what we're trying to do is say, hey, you do have ADHD. Let's keep this in mind. Don't apologize for it, but let's keep it in mind when you're thinking about your time and how you want to spend it. The book is definitely not about doing more. It's not about productivity. It is about how to figure out what is most important to you and how to spend your time and do that in a way that fits with your ADHD and your lifestyle and what you want and all of those good things. Pete, what do you have to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly it. It's an opportunity for adults who have been living in a space of shame around how they interact with the world in their own skin and how the world interacts with them. It's a book that celebrates the experience positively and thoughtfully and mindfully in a way that allows you to just sort of wake up in the morning and ask yourself, how am I going to contribute today? And how am I going to do so shame-free? And what are the systems I need that I have to have in place to allow me to get that done and to be able to build those systems without compromise? Our entire sort of motivation is to write this for essentially the audience of the podcast, people who come to us and tell us like, we see light when we listen to your show. We see hope when we listen to your show. Well, this book is for people who feel kind of hopeless, and we hope you see yourself in the book, and that that you're able to rediscover a little bit of light.
Love that. Love I love the purpose behind the book. I have a free book club where it's called Focus on ADHD Books, where we read books about ADHD, and your book was one of those in 2025. And I wrote some of the questions. So I'm going to look away from the screen for a second. So I read to you word by word a question by someone. And this is first thing they wanted to ask: why did you choose to call the audience Jordan?
Oh, that is definitely
I
a Pete question.
that is a Pete question.
And
All
only
right.
asked by a fellow ADHDer, because I have to tell you that 3 other people that read the book that were professionals, clinicians, they took a while to even understand what he was talking about,
Yeah.
even though they
Right.
read the book.
When I approached the book, and just stepping back just a bit, so much of the way we approach the book is Nikki writes the coaching stuff, right? And like she said, we collaborate on some of the concepts and the conceits, but Nikki's the coach, right? That's the authority of the book. And I'm a storyteller, right? I'm the essayist, and I get to write, here's the lived experience. And as I started writing the book, I just naturally started writing as if it's like a letter to someone, right? To an avatar kind of reader, someone who I wanted to just be able to talk to. And the name, actually, that was not the original name. I'm not going to say the original name because there's no point, but I will say the name came with some discussion. Happily, where we landed and everybody agreed happened to also be the middle name of one of my children, and so who also lives with ADHD. And so I was able to kind of, I don't know, telling stories to Jordan was like telling story to somebody that I love very dearly, and I hope is able to live an empowered life with ADHD, in partnership with it, in collaboration with ADHD. And so it really is a term of endearment. I hope it's not a term of confusion. I hope we explain it in the book
No,
well
no,
enough, but it really
you
is.
explained it, but I think the reader that didn't have ADHD kind of read the explanation, kept on going. And the reader that had ADHD kind of kept on like, wait, was there a story behind the name? Wait, I missed that. Did I
Yeah.
miss the story behind the name?
That's the story behind the
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
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 I did
Good old
like that, and I
Jordan.
did like that you shared that you didn't like hide that, and like use the tool and then reflect it to the readers. I appreciated that. And when we're talking about tools and stuff and planning and the whole idea of us needing to put effort into planning, a lot of times I hear from individuals with ADHD, but I'm so bad at this. Like, you can throw at me 7 books, there's no hope. So let me bring back the hope. Help me tell the audience why this is something they can get better at.
You want to go first, Coach?
No, you go first.
All right. There is a turn of phrase that was introduced to us after the book came out, but I actually think retroactively defines the experience of the book. We hope. I hope. Dr. Dodge, he says, look, it's hard. ADHD is hard. It feels impossible. It's not your fault, but it is yours. Now, that sort of encapsulates the double-edged sword of ADHD, right? Yeah, it's hard. Everything feels impossible. And we're all living in the world today with the same 24 hours in the day, with the same people who are calling on us, the same sort of, some variant, some sort of cornucopia of obligations that we have to live with. So there is both a responsibility that we have to step up to the plate and try things, right? That's the hope. And that's actually the only thing we're asking of people in the book, is that you step up to the plate and try something. And you've tried 50 things before, and it's not your fault that they haven't worked, but they are yours. So what's the 51st? That's it. That's all the book is suggesting. It is acknowledging that it feels hopeless, and yet it is not your fault, but it is yours. So what are we going to do next? Because you don't know. When I've been diagnosed for 30 years, and it took probably 28 of those years for me to figure out a system that I've been able to stick with for a little while, and it changes all the time, even still. It's hard. We've been there. The hope is just that you keep that you maintain the stamina to try the next thing.
I agree 100% with that. And, just to add is that, to try, to practice, to know that it's always evolving, and there's not a right or wrong way to do this. This isn't you do this, this, and this. This is you can do this, but there's also other ways you can do it. And then you need to kind of practice it and adjust it a little bit. And then, so there's a lot of flexibility around it. And absolutely, we're giving you guidance with your ADHD in mind. And as Pete says, it's yours. And hopefully this will help, give you some hope and some inspiration and some ideas and some insight that you've never had before to do things differently.
I love ADHD books. I really do. And I almost think that part of the reframe is to reframe around, don't just throw me just another ADHD book. The truth is, there is a gem in every ADHD book, hopefully more. The offer here is, here's something new to digest. And not, it's not a derogatory thing to say there's another ADHD book, because they're all searching for the right metaphor that's going to connect with you, the right tool that you're going to be able to really engage with and internalize. You just never know where it's going to come from. It could be from another wonderful ADHD book. It could be from a friend or a podcast or a parent or a child. So,
yep, very true. When we talk about like planning, and the whole challenge of it not being easy. Okay. So there's a lot of assumptions that happen behind like the whole idea that we need to plan. What is the one thing that you think most people are getting wrong when they're thinking about their planning?
Well, I think that they feel like they have failed if the plan doesn't go the way that they expected it to go. And I can tell you the plan is not going to go the way that you expect it to go. So I think that there's a false reality. I mean, when you go to sit down and plan your week, for example, we are trying to predict what's going to happen in the future. We're trying to predict what new things are going to come our way. We're trying to predict how we're going to feel on any certain day or time. And, often we don't take into account that things take longer, that there's time blindness that gets in the way, that we do have ADHD, distractions happen, interruptions happen, recovery time needs to happen. None of those things are being accounted for. And so we're doing the best we can, but we set this plan out. It doesn't work. We blame ourselves. And then that thought of, I can't plan. I just can't do it. It doesn't work. I can't time block because every time I put a time block in it, it never works. And so what we're saying is, okay, wait a minute. Let's take a step back. And what if you plan like you have ADHD? What if all of a sudden you know that you're trying to predict the future, but you also understand that we are not mind readers. We are not mind readers. What are we? What are we not, Pete? What's the person that can't see into the future?
We're not fortune tellers.
That's right. That's what we're not. We are not fortune
We are
tellers.
also not mind readers, and both things are important to remember.
Yes, we are neither one of those things. But there is ADHD involved.
Yes.
Yes. So I think that, just knowing that this is going to open up your mind to think, okay, so what do I do at the beginning of the week? How do I take into account my ADHD and these things that are going to happen, that some I have control over and some I don't, right? And so it's learning to be flexible. It's learning to pivot. And take it day by day and know that if a time block didn't happen or if something took longer than what you expected and it ran into another meeting, it's not your fault, right? We know that. We know that this is not your fault. You're not broken. ADHD is not breaking you, but it is something to learn. It is something to figure out that, well, maybe I shouldn't have 5 meetings, in the morning. Maybe that's not such a great idea. And so part of the book too is learning more about yourself. How do you spend your time? How long do the things take you that you do on a pretty regular basis that you could, start to estimate a little bit better? So yeah, a lot of those things. I mean, it's a complex question with a lot of layers to the answer, but Pete, what do you have to add?
Nikki, I'm going to be real honest with you.
Yeah.
I got sidetracked on the fortune teller mind reader thing,
Did you?
and I
So
completely
you're
forgot
just
the
like,
question. Yeah, I don't have the question in my head anymore, and that's where we are. Now I'm at a circus.
Memory,
it's like
and now it never
The
moved into
genie
your
thing,
and it never moved into your long-term memory.
That's exactly. That's 100% what happened. So there we are.
I'm just going to go to the next question and give you an
opportunity.
I am as ready for that as the last question. Yeah.
So one of my readers wrote that while they were trying to figure out how long things take them, they got very frustrated that some days things take them, 5 minutes, and other days things take them 55 hours, or at least it feels like 55 hours. Okay. So they wanted kind of an insight about that flexibility, not like that. Even that same task could take them in different opportunities depending on, how much they slept, who they fought with before, what they're thinking about. This same task could take different times. How do you suggest coping with that?
Oh my gosh, this is one of my very favorite concepts because A, I hate it because it's a truth, and B, because like all great bits of wisdom, the answer comes from the TV show The Good Place.
Okay.
Right. There is an episode of The Good Place where they're trying to describe a concept very similar, and they use the term Jeremy Bearimy, and it describes time as the signature of a person named Jeremy Bearimy, and time moves in looping craziness that, strands that go back in and over themselves, and the eye is a little circle that's disconnected. It's completely off to the side, and that's what ADHD time feels like. It feels like 1 hour will work at 60 minutes per hour, and the immediate following hour is 600 minutes per hour, and the immediate hour after that is 6 minutes per hour. And that's just the way we live with ADHD. And it sucks. And I wish I had a better answer than the scaffolding of systems is what you count on so that you have something to return to when things come off the rails. And that's, I look at it like this. I work with a trainer, He's amazing. And he fell off his mountain bike in the woods and he broke his arm. And as a result, he has a plate and 8 screws in his forearm. And he is healing at a rate that I cannot imagine. It seems alien that he is able to heal as quickly, but the doctors are saying, look, you are an incredibly fit human being. You have the systems already in place to heal faster than those who don't. He has something to bounce back to, right? He is coming back to a state of health that others don't have, that we aspire to. And that's the point with ADHD scaffolding, with coming up with the systems and the plan and having a relationship with your calendar that is not antagonistic, that is not fearful. When time gets away from you, you can bounce back into a system and not be completely torn asunder, completely thrown, that you'll never be able to find normal again because you were there once. You did have a good relationship once. So there, that's my tirade. Nikki, make that make sense.
Oh, okay. I'm going to add to it. I'm not going to help. You made sense. You made
Okay,
perfect sense.
good.
No, but I'm going to add to it. I think that as a coach, I think that this is where it's important to actually do a little bit of time tracking and figure out like what is happening. If they're doing the exact same task and sometimes it takes 5 minutes and sometimes it takes an hour, I'd be really curious about what the difference is between the 2 times because something's happening. And so it could be like, let's say this happens to me. I watch the news. I watch the Today Show every morning when I get ready for work. If I get sucked into a story and I stop getting ready for work and I'm just watching the TV, I'm going to add 5-10 minutes to the final, I'm ready for my work day. Right. And so I would be curious to know what is happening that is such a discrepancy between the times. And I say that in like being specific because a lot of times ADHDers are very broad and very all or nothing. And so I think it's important that we kind of catch that when we ask a question like that. How often does that really happen? Are you feeling this all the time that, where you can't estimate anything? I would be really curious. And I'm going to bet that the more questions we ask, the clearer we're going to be about really why that is happening.
And
You always got to ask, what is your Today Show?
yeah.
Everybody's got a Today Show.
Everybody's got it.
And I added, was the first time the shiny, exciting time and the second time boring. I was very curious about that in the conversation because us ADHDers, I think we like the shiny and new and bright. And
Absolutely.
sometimes that affects the time. And really, we need to do the task a few times if we want to really estimate how long it takes.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to say that I did this little experiment after reading the book. I filmed the morning routine in the household. I put a few old phones around the house and I filmed what happens when we are trying to leave the house. And surprisingly, consistently, someone makes it to the door and says, we didn't feed the dog. Go back to the other side, put down the backpack, go feed the dog. Then we have to find where the backpack went. We have to start so then we had to put a post-it, was the dog, let's stop it before we make it out the door. Let's put the post-it there to remind us that that's the piece meaning. So when people talk about tracking time or tracking behavior, we can be ADHD creative in our way and strategies of how we're doing that. We don't have to do it the boring way. We can do it creatively. And that could help us. Knowing where we're falling over our own feet really helps.
I love that so much. And first of all, it's theater of the absurd. I would watch that video. I also think when I talk about scaffolding and having something to bounce back to, those Post-its are scaffolding, right? Let's not mistake what those really are. Those are the things that you're going to use to bounce back to when the world falls apart. I think it's brilliant. Perfect.
And do you remember my Post-it trick? They have an expiration date on them and then we go around and collect
so
them
much.
and put new ones.
Yep.
And I have to tell you, Daniella, people are doing that. I have clients and members of my membership that is exactly what they're doing. That's a great tip.
I'm
Truly
so happy.
inspired.
I'm so happy. So talking about great tips and thoughts, you bring up in the book the whole concept of a workflow and not one tool for fixing everything in our the whole we should not expect the calendar to do everything that the planner, calendar, maybe task manager should be doing. So the question that my 2 readers about this specific one, both of them asked it without knowing One was one like was on the conversation. What is your personal favorite task manager that you use? That was their question.
They're not going to like our answer.
Why? I think we have a great answer.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah. What is your? Go ahead, Nikki. What is yours?
What is my favorite? The one that works for them.
Well, the worst
Okay.
year in marriage is the one you're in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also the best year, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It's also the best.
It is. Yes. There is not I don't have a favorite. There is not a best one for ADHD. I have people in my membership who have very complex systems, and I have people who use note cards. So,
Okay, but also that wasn't quite the question. The question was specifically, which one do you use?
was that the question?
That was
Which
the
one do
question.
I use, or which one
Yeah.
is my favorite for just which one I use?
Yeah,
The
they
one
were
that you-
curious at
yeah.
what you guys were using.
What does your workbox look like?
Well, I use Todoist and Google Calendar.
Yeah. I use Todoist as well. I am an enthusiastic user of Todoist. I think right now I've got, let's see, I'm looking at my current tasks, and I have across all of Todoist, looks like about 1,800 tasks in Todoist across all of the templates that we use and everything. And I just, I think the flexibility of the filters that you can create has allowed me to not feel like I'm losing tasks. And that is new, right? That's why I stick with Todoist, because other systems I find I don't have the flexibility to create sort of the dashboards that I need to surface tasks when I need to see them. That isn't completely overcomplicated. Yeah, Todoist is fantastic. I use Fantastical as my calendar application on both my phone, iPad, and computer. And between those two, for my relationship with time is Fantastical, and with work, it's Todoist.
In addition to, because I know it's going to come up in the comments, so I use Notion. I use Notion, like you guys use the to-do list. And because my teenager started being my assistant and did that for me, and that's it. It's stuck. There's nothing like having someone that helps you. I also use my Google Calendar, but I also have on the wall a kind of a command center where I put like the big stuff. So, because there's this phenomena that happens in my household where the kids would walk in and the husband would walk in to see when the vacation is and when the trip is, and that's kind of the it's more like the family command year kind of on the wall. The sad part is now even the dog has a little color there where he appears, because apparently if we go on vacation, we have to take care of who's bringing him where and stuff. So he is now the additional family member on the board. So I love those tools that you're using and talking about. One of the things that I hear a lot from people is it's really good. I build a system. I spend so long on planning and doing and excited, and then I lose motivation, or something falls through, or suddenly I can't remember how to put something on that system, and that's it. I desert it. Or after the fun of building it, now it's no longer. So you talk in the book about the maintenance part. Share with us, how do we maintain these workflows? How do we maintain these systems?
Well, maintenance, I'll speak to the maintenance, and then I would love Pete to speak to like what happens if it gets old or it's not shiny anymore. The maintenance piece is that you're working in it, right? So we talk about your work box, and we talk about these two tools, the calendar and the task manager, but there's also these other tools that are in your work box, because it's really where where are you doing your work? And if you have it set up in a way that you're using it every day, then you are going to be maintaining it because you're using it. You're depending on it. You're trusting it to tell you what to do. So you're trusting your calendar to tell you where to be, and you're trusting your task manager to tell you what to do that day. And as you do stuff, you start to, check it off, and then things come in, and that's part of the workflow. What do I do when a new project or new task comes in? Where does it land? So the more clear you are about what your workflow is and how your tools work together, and you're using them on a daily basis, the maintenance just comes. It comes as part of it because you're using it all the time. Now, the thing is that we know that ADHDers are inconsistent. And so you may not use it every day, right? You may come in and for whatever reason, you go straight to email and now everything's on fire and your day goes and then another day happens. And so now you feel like you've got all these cascading tasks and it feels out of reach. It feels too overwhelming. But this goes back to what Pete was saying about how important it is that you have that scaffolding in place. You have systems in place. You've done the work. So now what we need to do is get into the mindset that you can go back in and clean it up. And it's
Mm.
not nearly going to take you as long as it did to set it up. So you can come in with the confidence knowing that I can look at the today list and I can start saying, nope, I did that, or I need to redate that because that needs to get pushed. You have the references and you have the tools to be able to do that. So part of it is believing that you can do that, believing that you have the systems that are solid enough to be able to be resistant resistant, I think is what I'm trying to say, to when you fall off, right? But then we also have to talk about friction too. Like where did you fall off? What is the friction of you using the system? Because there could be things that need to be tweaked for sure. So maintenance comes, I think, as you use it. And if you fall off, believing that you can come in and repair it. And then I would ask Pete, like, what do you do when it's just not shiny anymore? What would you recommend?
Well, I recommend using my experience as a warning to others and not as a role model because my to-do systems are my love language. And so when things aren't shiny, I tend to start using a whole bunch of them at the same time. And I'll go for months where I'm maintaining all the identical sets of tasks across 3 different systems or 4, and it's horrible. It's just a horrible way to live your life, but I love it. I love it so much because that's what stimulates, my dopamine response is check, 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 check across all of them at the same time. I think friction is a really important piece to this, and I want to really kind of lean in on that because sometimes when you're using a system that has lost its spark, it may be because there is too much friction in the system. It takes you too much to find the work that you need to do at any given moment or to enter your data or to whatever. Sometimes it might be that there's not enough. It's too easy to bounce off the system and just do the work from your head, which lasts about one task, and then you've lost the thread of what you were doing. I think to be, when you can connect to it, to be thoughtful, to be mindful about the process of how you find you're entering work into a system, how you get things in and out of the systems that you're using, that can help to keep you attentive to it. For me, my dashboard is both a little bit complicated, but exactly as simple as it needs to be to keep me coming back to it every day. Every day it's a little bit different. It is a filter that shows me where my deadlines are, what today looks like, what tomorrow looks like, what's overdue, and then the work itself is stimulating, right? Seeing the tasks themselves, it's stimulating to me, and so I'm able to kind of maintain. It took a lot of years to figure that out, and it's okay. It's okay. I'm also a really tactile user.
Mm-hmm.
Ironically, some it has happened. I'm just going to say it has happened. I will not tell you how many times or when the last time was that my to-do system might have felt not great, and so I bought a new keyboard, and the keyboard made the to-do system feel better. You just have to figure out how
You
to
just
how to
never know.
diagnose your own stuff, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not here to keyboard shame anybody. At least, this is my life. Sometimes you have to understand what the connective tissue is between the things, the way your brain works and the systems. That's the friction. And for me, a great keyboard, kept me interested.
Yeah.
I like the idea. And I think that the conversation made me think about house construction, like how when you build a house, like it's challenging, it's hard, but like everyone assumes there's a level of maintenance. But my ADHD brain wants to tear down the house and just rebuild again, understanding that is definitely not practical. And maintenance is a lot easier and more sustainable, but definitely less fun and exciting. So maybe finding ways to make it a little bit more fun and exciting, like you're saying, like change the keyboard.
And it also could be, changing the keyboard, but it also could be evaluating how you're organizing the system and maybe just switching up some of the projects or how you title things or putting some emojis. Like I have emojis all over my Todoist because
Emojis make a huge difference.
yes,
Who knew?
I want to see color. I want to see it come alive. I don't want to just see a bunch of, words on a screen. So yeah, I think it's finding what resonates with you.
Well,
I
yeah,
love that.
that's like right in your wheelhouse, Daniela, right? It's like we are creatures of symbols
Yep.
and pattern recognition.
Yep.
And especially our ADHD brains love that stuff.
We
Catnip.
do.
That keeps you looking at it. It's great.
We do. Which made me point out that while I was reading the book, there was a moment that I yelled, yee, and I have to share with you. This was at page 87, and I'm going to quote, you guys basically said that if you have ADHD, you can't rely on your memory. And I'm like, yes, yes, they got that right. So, in case you didn't remember, that's what you said on page 87.
Yes.
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
There
you.
you go.
I'm going to look that up. Yeah.
But I think that's where like kind of the whole idea of the struggle, the friction between our internal challenges, our executive function challenges in our memory versus our need for everyone's need for planning and structure. And this is, if you have ADHD or you don't, we need planning and structure. So I'm going to ask you, what do you think people are getting totally wrong? You'd wish like you kind of want to go and hit them on the head with the book about planning. Like, what are there just not doing okay, change that perception.
I think this is what I think. I have a membership, right, of people who are planning twice a week with me every day, every week, twice a week, we're planning together. And I would say that the number one thing, and I'm not going to say that they do it wrong because that's not nice. I think they have very high expectations and they fall into magical thinking very quickly. They always think they can do more than what they can do, and they pack those lists. So with a daily list of what would be reasonable of maybe 3 or 4 things are now packed with like 20, and they really believe they can do it. But then at the end of the day, when they don't do it, who do they blame? Themselves. But you know what? It wouldn't have been realistic for anyone. No one would have been able to get all of those things done. So I would say that the one thing that people are doing, I don't want to say wrong because I just don't like it. I don't think it's nice.
The thing that they're doing that's hurting themselves.
That's hurting themselves is that the expectations are unrealistic. They're too high, and then they blame themselves.
I get that.
Okay. My turn? This is my turn.
Yeah, it's your turn.
It took me a lot of time to figure this out myself. So again, no judgment. But I think that ADHDers have been taught, many from childhood, that their relationship with time is impossible. And so they refuse to have a relationship with time. And that sort of impermeability is a major sort of self-own, right? You're not, if you can't learn to develop that muscle because you refuse to develop that muscle because of some internalized tapes that have been playing in your head since you were 10, that is standing in the way of you being able to understand how time works and how time can work for you, and summarily building the scaffolding that you need to actually develop a more reasonable, if not healthy, relationship with it. And that goes, it goes to your point, Nikki, about stacking too many tasks. It goes to this. You stack too many tasks because you have an unhealthy relationship with time. It's a maladaptive relationship with time. And so I recommend first things first, like first principles, understand a calendar, figure out a calendar, go through an exercise of building what is your ideal calendar. And then as you start your time tracking against tasks, figure out how well those task times, the real ones, line up to your ideal calendar, the calendar that you would like to live, and start building that as your sort of initial scaffold. I think that's a pretty significant one that is something people just put up in front of themselves. They just say, I can't do it, so I won't do it, And that's the maladaptive part.
I think I don't want us to run out of time before I ask you a few more questions. So, if you could go back and tell young self, Nikki, and you young self, what would you tell them now that you wrote a book about planning, organizing, you know better about ADHD? What would you say?
Wow. Probably knowing me, it's going to be something like, don't be so pedantic. Don't, come on.
Perfection is the enemy. You talk about that in the
Yeah,
book too. Perfection is
right.
the enemy.
Yeah, right.
You know what comes up for me is a Jason Mraz song. And
That's on
anybody,
brand.
yeah,
Yeah.
anyone that listens to our show, that's right on brand. I'm a huge Jason Mraz fan, and Jason Mraz has a song called "In the Moment," I believe is the title, and he sings about, you know, the past is the past and being in the moment, and I think that is where I would fall. Is we can't take back what we did or didn't do in the past, but we can live in this moment. The present is still, you know, we're here in the present. The future's unwritten. Let's move forward.
And what would you tell to future self?
Hey, guess what? I wrote a book with Pete Wright. That's pretty darn cool. And we have this great podcast and we get to, you know, talk to wonderful people that have these beautiful minds. And I absolutely love that I've dedicated my career to this.
You know, it's really interesting. I don't know if it's necessarily future self, but it's there. I think there was. I'm a regular participant, or was for a long time, in National Novel Writing Month. For 20 years, I wrote a novel every year of fiction, and I never got over the hump of actually editing and releasing any of them until I wrote this book with Nikki. Like that was a thing that I think, you know, I have to say I would tell future self before I wrote this book, hey, future self, writing this book is going to unlock something for you that's going to change your life. And since this book, I can now say I've released my first work of fiction in bookstores. You can get it, and two more are coming this year. It's like
Wow.
it is unlocked sort of a capability that I don't think I knew I had until I was able to kind of prove that the friction didn't get the better of me. And that's a really exciting worldview to just sort of awaken to, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Great insights. What's next on your dockets, and where can people find you? So let's share both where people can find you and what's books.
Well, we've talked about what comes next for ADHD books. We don't have an ADHD book coming. This one is we're happy with this one. So we just really would love to welcome people over to the podcast. You can find us at takecontroladhd.com or search for the show at Taking Control, the ADHD podcast. It's wherever finer podcasts are served. We'd love to have you over there. And if anybody's interested, please check out my works of fiction. You can find out more at itsmepete.com.
Very good.
Perfect. And thank you so much for joining. Nikki, what else is going to be on do you have anything to add? Anything exciting going on that you want to share?
You know, I would just share that if you're interested in the planning membership, if that's something that you would like to do with other people, with community, if you find that planning alone is been challenging, we do open it up 3 times a year, and it is actually going to be open in probably about a month or so. But I know it doesn't matter when you hear this show, just come to the website at takecontroladhd.com, and if it's not open, you can put yourself on a wait list and we'll contact you on the next time that it's open.
Perfect. Look at that. She removed the friction for you guys. Look at that.
Yeah. Don't worry about the time.
Don't worry
No
about
time.
it. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see
Thank you
you
for
on
having
the
us.
other side of the podcast world.
Thank you.
Okay.